this is Anna with Folksy Tales. On this channel, I talk about stories, in particular, folktales, beliefs, and mythologies. If you're interested in Tolkien lore, take a look at my channel, The Folksy Friend. Today I am talking about a legend, the Chinese legend, the Crane Maiden. Once there was a man named Tian Kunlun who lived with his old mother, and she wanted nothing more than for him to be married. But they were not very wealthy, and the chances of finding a good wife were pretty slim for him. Now, near Tian's home, there was a beautiful, beautiful pond with crystal clear waters, framed by rushes all around, with beautiful willow trees looming overhead. And one day, while he was on his way to the fields to work, Tian heard laughter coming from the direction of this pond. And not really sure what was going on, he went to have a look. And when he came near the pond, he was very quiet and crept very carefully because he could see three beautiful, out of this world beautiful young women who were swimming, splashing, and having a grand old time, completely naked. And as he watched, completely entranced, he sneezed. And of course, the women immediately realized someone was there, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into three magnificent cranes. Now they flew towards him. The first two were able to swoop down and pick up their clothes before taking off into the sky. But the third crane was a little bit slower, and Tian managed to grab her bundle of clothing before she could take off. The crane went back into the water and turned back into a beautiful young woman, and she begged Tian for her clothing. She told Tian that she was a celestial being. She was a daughter of the high god, and the other two cranes were her sisters. They sometimes came down from the celestial realm to spend time in the human world, but she could not return home unless she had her celestial clothing, which her father had given her so that she could make this journey down to the human realm. And she told Tian that if he returned her clothing, she would agree to marry him. And Tian agreed, but he was worried that if she got her clothing back, she would just turn into a crane and fly away. So instead, he took off his outer garments and gave them to her to wear and took her back to his home. Now, she was unwilling because he tricked her essentially, but she had given her word and she did agree to marry him. Their wedding was beautiful and lavish, and all of their friends, family, neighbors came and were just amazed by this beautiful young woman. In time, they came to love each other as much as they could, and they even had a son together, which the Crane Maiden loved dearly, and they named their son Tian Zhang. Now, years later, Tian was called to war, and he told his elderly mother, who was very elderly at this point, that he had a secret he had to share with her. He showed his mother his wife's celestial clothing and told her that no matter what his wife did, no matter how much she asked or begged, she could not get her hands on those clothes. And his old mother promised to keep the clothes hidden. As soon as Tian went away, his wife immediately went to his mother, and every day the Crane Maiden begged her old mother-in-law to just let her see the celestial clothing. She promised not to go anywhere or do anything. She just wanted so badly to see the things that would remind her of home. And Tian's old mother, feeling moved to pity for the Crane Maiden, agreed to just show her the clothes. As soon as the old mother took the clothing out of the chest where it was hidden, the Crane Maiden held them to her heart and began to weep with joy. But before anyone could do anything, before she could be stopped, the Crane Maiden threw off her worldly clothes, put on her celestial clothing, and turned into a crane, flying out the nearby window, back up to her heavenly home. When Tian returned, he was devastated, heartbroken that his wife had left, but he understood and he forgave his mother for having shown his wife the clothing. His son, however, could not be consoled. The young boy was just beside himself. He would weep constantly for his mother and go out roaming the fields and the lands, just looking for any sign of her. One day, a wise old man who was taking a rest under a willow tree heard the young boy calling for his mother and told the boy to come over. The wise old man told him that if he wanted to see his mother again, he must go to the pool near his home and look at the three women. The one who would not face him was his mother. Of course, the young boy immediately went to the pool, and as the old man had said, there were 3 beautiful women in the water. However, they weren't splashing around and having fun this time. The Crane Maiden had persuaded her sisters to come back to the human world with her because she missed her son so dearly. She just wanted to be able to see his face and reassure herself that he was okay. When Tian went to the waters, the sisters saw that he was there and told the Crane Maiden to turn around. Her son was here. She could see him, but she wouldn't turn. She was so guilty at having left him that she just couldn't bear to face him. But of course, in that moment, the son then knew that this was his mother, and he ran to her and threw his arms around her, and she just broke down in tears. Later, when her sisters told her it was time to return to their home, the Crane Maiden could not bear to be parted from her son again, and so they took him with them, carrying him between them on their backs. They returned to the palace of the High God, and he was thrilled to see that his daughter was happy again because she had been so miserable in the days and weeks that she hadn't had her son. And of course, he was delighted to find that he was a grandfather, and he loved and wanted to spend time with his grandson. The High God taught Tianzhong all the things that he knew about the heavens and the world, and his grandson turned out to be a very fast learner. When it became time for Tianzhong to finally return home, the High God gave him 8 books and told him to keep these books with him and to study them carefully, because all knowledge that he needed for life was in these books, and it could greatly benefit the earth. When Tianzhong returned to the world, he found that it hadn't just been a couple of days. It had been 20 years, and he immediately tried to find his earthly family, but his grandmother had passed away a long time ago, and his father, in despair at losing his entire family, had moved far out into the west to live a solitary life. And so, Tianzhong dedicated his entire life to better helping humanity. He studied his 8 books diligently and became a great scholar and judge and was given high honors in the emperor's court. He became famous throughout the land for his wisdom and his desire to help everyone he could. And it was because of this that, thousands of miles away, Tian heard of his son's fame, and he was, at last, content. And that was the tale of the Crane Maiden. This story immediately reminded me of Selkies, of fairy lore. Are Selkies fairies? Oh, I need to look that up. Well, regardless, Selkies are, or Rowan as they're sometimes known, they are creatures from Irish and possibly Scottish mythology. They are women who are seals, and they slip out of their seal coat in the evening to just walk around naked in their human form on the beach. And sometimes local men were able to steal their seal coats, preventing them from returning into the sea, and the men would then marry them and essentially force them to become their wife. And if the woman ever found her seal coat, she would immediately put it on and go back into the ocean. That reminded me right away of this. But regardless, I still think of it, I guess you could say, even though it wasn't a healthy relationship, no marriage should ever begin with coercion, still, something good came of it. At least Tianzhong was able to better humanity. So there's that. I was able to find a fair amount of information about specifically cranes in Chinese mythology, and I thought it was just absolutely beautiful. So cranes represent royalty or nobility, wisdom, peace, and also longevity or immortality, and they feature prominently in many Chinese myths and legends. In Chinese mythology, there's a belief that cranes live for 1,000 years, and to see one is to be granted not only luck, but extra longevity yourself. And this comes from the fact that cranes are naturally long-lived birds. Cranes are often shown in pairs as well in Chinese art and stories, and this is kind of related to the idea of having a long and peaceful, happy marriage, to have 2 cranes together. And that made me, of course, think of Tian and his desire to marry the Crane Maiden, except that he did not get his long and happy marriage, because again, she was forced into it. And interestingly, I also found that in many Chinese stories, immortal gods, I don't know if you can hear that thunder loud, it's also getting dark. I'll have to wrap this up. Many immortal gods ride down from the celestial realm to the human realm on cranes. They are seen as kind of a link between the celestial and the mortal. And again, there's that link with the Crane Maiden, with the crane form kind of being the way that the sisters travel, but also, as is prominent in many Chinese stories, the importance of wearing their celestial clothing or their celestial robes in allowing them to travel between realms. That's all I have for today. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will be back on Friday with the German fairy tale, The Peasant's Clever Daughter. And that was a request. Someone asked that I do that one, and I'm so excited because it made me laugh out loud several times. So I hope you will join me for that, and I will see you next time.